That resistance is conditioning, much like everything else is. If you can just lean into the part of yourself that's like, yeah, but I think there's something here, and then just focus on the practices related to rewiring the mind, it'll all work out. And you'll understand the spiritual journey as you go along it. And now for something completely different. Going on a spiritual journey can sound like child's play to a lot of people. It can also sound like something that maybe crazy people do, or people that aren't that bright, people that aren't able to figure life out. And so there's a lot of resistance to the idea of spirituality amongst the masses, amongst the matrix. And understandably so. I just wanted to take a moment to address people who think that way or feel that way, to try and help. Not from a place of, hey guys, check me out. Just like legitimately to try and help people. Because when you dig down the road of self-help, for people who would like to be happier, when you dig down the road of self-help, you inevitably run into things that have spiritual backing. Most people that fit this camp, that fit the camp of like, yeah, I don't know about all that stuff, but I would like to be happier. If we just focus on the practices related to belief in self, and if we understand at the level of quantum physics that it's all fucking connected at subatomic levels, and that it's not physical matter, it's energy fields that interact with each other. And what we perceive at a fundamental level is from the one true source, which is consciousness. And there was a Nobel Prize winner that uncovered this in the last year or two, or proved it or something. Local reality, as we understand it, is not true to our understanding, our historical perception of how the world works. I've said this a lot before, but for me, it was very beneficial to go down the road of researching what I believe in consciously, and then continuing to research it, continuing to talk about it to myself, to install new neurological networks and pathways that become stronger than the preceding vantage point of how things work, of how the world works. And it's an ongoing process, as is the process of deconstructing or deconstructing and reconstructing your subconscious mind, rewiring your subconscious mind, rewiring the brain, the neurological networks in the brain. There is no done point to the journey, right? This continues to go on for the entirety of life. One big, massive experience with a bunch of other experiences inside of it. And it's all about the framing of the experiences, our ideas of the past, present, and future. So for someone who's at that point in their life where they want to try something different, and they've entertained the idea of going down the path within to rewire the mind, or the spiritual journey, or joining an AA program, but they've had resistance to the spirituality thing, that resistance is conditioning, much like everything else is. If you can just lean into the part of yourself that's like, yeah, but I think there's something here, and then just focus on the practices related to rewiring the mind, it'll all work out. And you'll understand the spiritual journey as you go along it. But it's not like some woo-woo seeing a bunch of spirits and stuff. I mean, for some people, sure. For some people, yes, that's a thing. And in my journey, I have had some experiences that previous versions of myself would be like, what the fuck? And I'm like, well, you used to resist the shit out of this because you didn't believe in it, but now that you don't know what's going on, and maybe it could be a thing. So who knows what it is? It's different for everybody, but there's nothing to fear. And even though a previous version of myself wouldn't admit that I feared it, there was unconscious fear to going into the unknown, to going to the shadow. But there's nothing to fear. It's just deconstructing and reconstructing the way our mind works. And yes, healing buried emotions, gray matter stored in the brain. And when we understand that we were never trained how to properly process emotions, there can be a lot of stored gray matter back there. And the further along the road that we go of rewiring, decluttering, deconstructing, reconstructing, the clearer we see, the better we feel, the happier we are. The other level of all this that I oftentimes stress is the placebo effect. And even though when we look at it from a simple perspective, like, oh yeah, the placebo effect, that's what happens when the blah, blah, blah. Yes, that's true. But do we understand the deeper part of it? It means that thoughts have the ability to control matter. And we know that thoughts and emotions are a big, big part of this life, period. So one takeaway for anybody that's made it this deep, the way to look at this is similar to as if you were to go to the gym and start working out. I like to call it framing training. So if you're going down the road, it's the ongoing practice of framing and reframing your experiences, how you react to things, thoughts, emotions, and everything as you go along life, which can sound really daunting in the beginning. Believe me, I know, but it's just one of those things. You start, you get going with it, and then it becomes a part of you. And in the framing training, you're sharpening your mind, priming your mind. People do change, people can change, and you can change in more ways than you can possibly fathom at this moment. It is an ongoing process. I say this all the time, and it continues to ring true for me. Where I'm gonna be in the next 3 months, I can't possibly fathom right now, and so on and so forth throughout life. If we continue this journey, which once you're on the journey, you're not gonna turn back because it's really, really good. There's fruit along the path. There's no juice you have to drink. There's no, cult. You don't have to sign up for some weird classes, If you wanna work with me one-on-one, yes, I have a fee for that, but that's just me being there for the individual, being in the corner as a coach. That's just normal stuff. But there's no weird, group you have to join or weird mantras you have to do or anything of that nature. There's benefit in doing mantras, but finding your own mantras, that's a totally different conversation. But it's just a simple practice of rewiring the mind. It's just not something that's talked about in mainstream media, which is understanding when you look at how all that stuff works. Anyhow, the idea behind the video was to help transmute or alchemize the perception, the potential negative perception of a spiritual journey because of how powerful the path within really is. And that framing can sound really, really woo-woo and hippie, and I get it. That's why so much of my content talks about rewiring the mind. But the further along I go with my journey, the less resistance I have to saying things like inner child work or my path within or the path to enlightenment. Okay, I think I'm done now. If you want to talk more, or if you like what I'm saying, then hey, sign up for the videos or give me a shout, all right? You guys have a beautiful day.
Just you white in Reagan, just you white. You'll be sorry that your tears will be too light. Just you white in Reagan.